Start recording, please. Thank you. So I have to read some rules for tonight's hearing. Good evening, I'm Gerard Martin. I'm the Deputy Regional Director for the Bureau of Water Resources at the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, or Mass DEP. And we are here at Mass DEP's Lakeville office on November 30th, 2022 at 6 p.m. for an official public hearing under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A. I am the hearing officer for this hearing. The hearing is being recorded, as you just heard, and conducted in a hybrid format, meaning there are people participating both in person and remotely. The recording will be posted on Mass DEP's website. Spanish and Portuguese translation services are available from Mass DEP staff if needed for tonight's hearing. Those Mass DEP staff will now introduce themselves and ask if any interpretation services are needed. Millie?
Buenas tardes, me llamo Mili García Serrano y soy la directora regional de la oficina de la región sureste de Mass DEP, localizada en Lakeville, Massachusetts. Si hay alguien presente que necesite asistencia interpretativa en español, por favor levante la mano usando la función de levantar la mano en su pantalla, o si está aquí presente también levante su mano.
Okay. Flávia?
Boa noite, meu nome é Flávia Jacobs, eu sou cientista ambiental do Escritório do Nordeste, do Departamento de Proteção do Meio Ambiente de Massachusetts. Se houver alguém presente nessa audiência pública que necessite de assistência com tradução em português, por favor, levante sua mão usando a função Raise Hand na tela do Zoom, ou, se você estiver presencialmente, levante sua mão.
No one has indicated that they will need interpreters.
One hand is raised.
Okay.
Donald Law. Nope. Just put his hand down, perhaps it was not.
Right. No one has indicated they need interpretive assistance tonight, so I'll continue. The purpose of this hearing is to accept public comments on Mass DEP's draft proposed amendments to Title V regulations at 310 CMR 15.000 to establish natural resource nitrogen sensitive areas and new watershed permitting regulations at 314 CMR 21.00. Before we begin the hearing, here is the protocol by which this hearing will be run. For in-person participants, if you wish to provide public comments, please sign up on the comment sign-in sheet with your name and, if applicable, your affiliation. We will give elected and appointed officials an opportunity to comment first. After that, we will call on people in order as they signed up to come to the podium and provide comments. After that, we will call on remote participants to provide comments. For remote participants, to minimize background noise and interference, the host has muted all remote participants and turned off the chat function. If you desire to comment remotely, please indicate that by raising your virtual hand. You will be unmuted in the order you raise your hands and then asked to state your name and affiliation if you are speaking on behalf of a group or organization and provide your comments. Commenters will be limited to 3 minutes. When you are prompted to provide comments, please come to the podium, as we said, and speak clearly and distinctly. And remember that your comment period will be limited to 3 minutes. Mary Beth, she's a timekeeper, will raise her hand when there are 30 seconds left, and again at the 3-minute mark. If you have a comment that was previously raised by somebody else, instead of repeating the comment, you may state the subject matter, the speaker who originally raised the comment, and the perspective with which you agree. If your comments exceed 3 minutes and you desire additional time, you may be allowed to provide additional remaining comments after other commenters have had a chance to speak, if time allows at the end of the meeting. Mass DEP will not be responding to your comments. Because this is a public hearing, we are only here to listen and record the comments. There are other opportunities to provide verbal public comments. Tomorrow, December 1st at 1 p.m. in a fully remote hearing, and on December 5th at 6 p.m. at Barnstable Town Hall. That will be a hybrid hearing. Mass DEP encourages you to also submit comments by email to dep.talks, T-A-L-K-S, @mass.gov. Please include Title V and watershed permit in the subject line. The public comment period closes at 5 p.m. on December 16th, 2022. I will now open the hearing for oral comments. Are there any elected officials or appointed officials in the room? Chris Michaud from Dartmouth? Yes, please, because we're recording it. Chris, we need to be close to the mic.
Christopher Michaud, Town of Dartmouth Health Department. I'm also a resident of Westport in the area impacted by these regulations. We spent a great deal of time looking at these regulations, and there's some disturbing aspects of this proposal that we have found. I'm only going to briefly touch upon them, but I am going to write in depth about it during the written comment period. The disturbing aspects are, one, the commissioner expressing in his letter the timeliness of this because nitrogen all of a sudden is this newfound problem. We started some of these studies almost 20 years ago. We teach that nitrogen is a pollutant in elementary school science class. So we are doing this as a reactive measure and not proactive. So whether you're doing something environmentally from a regulatory manner, proactive or reactive, you really want to be proactive. So these regulations are harsh economically in our area. We have environmental justice areas that are impacted by these regulations. And we're being told the 5-year approach or the watershed approach. Well, we have records that reveal that the watershed approach is not likely to work. We've also heard comments from Mass DEP that the 5-year approach is not likely to work because of operators, availability of materials, and people that can install them, including installers and electricians. Moreover, if that puts us into the enforcement aspect, is there enough enforcement ability of the regulators? We've heard that Mass DEP will assist. Well, we're told that 2,000 homes exist within our community that will be impacted by this regulation. If 50% of those homes comply, that leaves 1,000 homes that will overwhelm the court system, even if the town had enough money for lawyers. And I know there are only a handful of lawyers in the overall region. So with all that being said, we have regulations that cannot be implemented. The goals that have been established by them are doubted by the department in their records that we'll be providing. IA systems alone, as the department wrote, will not solve the problem. We're not here to say that we're advocating for a degraded environment, but the amount of money that this is going to cost the residents is cruel. The department's known about this for all too long, and now all of a sudden it's timely. It feels as though that there's something else driving this. And is it that lawsuit that was announced sometime in 2021? So to get one problem off the department's back, we're going to create a whole bunch of others for 2,000 homes in Dartmouth. Thank you.
One of the people in the audience reminded me, if everybody could quiet their cell phones, turn off the ringer, that would be great. I think I have to check mine.
We have officials on the line.
Right now, any other officials?
Good evening. My name is Robert Almy. I'm the chair of the Dartmouth Public Works Board. I have over 45 years' experience as a professional geologist on both the Pacific and Atlantic coasts. And I have done at least 8 projects on Cape Cod having to do with groundwater nitrates and surface water groundwater interactions. The issue here is not whether local embayments are impaired. The issue is what will be done to improve their water quality. The immediate issue is whether the regulations proposed for Cape Cod are appropriate for all local watersheds. They're not. The town of Dartmouth and the DEP need time to work out meaningful measures that will actually improve the Slocum River and Westport watersheds. I recommend a 6-month extension of the public comment period during which the towns and DEP can work out a process and issues that will actually work. To date, the process has lacked essential local coordination and consultation. The proposed regulations are inadequate to achieve meaningful environmental improvements. These regulations are based on data that is inadequate, outdated, and wrongfully applied. For example, the geologic setting of Westport and Slocum Rivers watersheds are substantially different than those on Cape Cod. The superficial materials, bedrock and compacted till, differ completely from the morainal and outwash deposits that comprise the watersheds of the Cape. The hydrology and local watersheds are significantly different than the Cape. Their size and complexity of the wetlands is different. Surface water, groundwater interactions are different. The number and nature of extractions, that is commercial and public well fields, is different. Nitrogen moves differently in these watersheds. The TMDL designation is based on inadequate 22 to 16-year-old data. There are actually gaps in the compliance point data for half of the years that are provided. So, in conclusion, there's been inadequate local consultation. There's been no discussion of alternative approaches. I question the legal basis of the 20-year watershed permits. There is the existing regulatory framework for control of other nitrogen sources has not been exercised, particularly for composting and agricultural nutrient use. The existing state programs to manage stormwater controls at airports and state highways are completely lacking. These are my comments as an individual. I will recommend these comments to the Board of Public Works at their next meeting, and you can expect a letter from us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other officials in the House that would like to speak now? Okay. Any public officials or elected officials online that would like to speak? Seeing none, we'll go down the list and how folks joined us this evening. Sean, first.
Oh, wait, John says, wait, sorry.
Oh, wait 1 second.
Okay. And someone was commenting, but we couldn't hear them,
Oh,
so. Please stand by, sorry.
No.
Hello? Hello?
hello.
Hi. Hi. I've been trying to get through to you guys. My name is Michelle Keith. I'm elected to the Board of Health in Dartmouth. And so at some point, I'd like to speak. I don't need to speak now, but at some point, please remember to give me a chance. Thank you.
Well, this would be your time if you would like to. Clearly not hearing me.
She muted herself.
She muted herself.
Michelle, you can go, but you may have muted yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. I greatly appreciate and support everything that Chris Machad has said and Mr. Alme has said. I just want to stress that, you know, we really want to act with common sense. And right now, these proposed regulations just to create a great expense to homeowners without any significant of the nitrogen pollution. And the requirement for the best available technology is a moving target, which will make it difficult for homeowners. And the proposed regulations are based on old data from 22 years ago and based on Cape Cod soils and watershed issues. So it makes this action by the Mass DEP pretty much arbitrary and capricious because you're basing it on old science. You know, it's really not a solution. And I support delaying this and working together so that we get the outcome. We all want the same outcome. We want to reduce nitrogen. And the current regulations aren't going to do that because when you look at the portion of the source of nitrogen, it's not the homeowners. That's not the greatest source. So we're going to end up failing in our quest to make our watershed improved. So thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other officials online that would like to speak now?
Can I speak now?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Mary Jane Mastrangelo. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen in the town of Bourne. And we're in the process of our comprehensive wastewater management plan. And these regulations are actually throwing a monkey wrench into our planning because we don't know what we're going to be able to do. And so I have concerns about DEP being able to process the number of watershed permits that could possibly be requested and holding up towns. I have questions about the process for towns. I have questions about how we're going to get all these septic systems done in 5 years. I think this is a huge burden that's happening, and I think it's going in the wrong direction. I think mandating that Title V systems in sensitive areas be IA systems, so there are no more non-IA systems happening, is one thing. I think talking about the watershed permit process and how best to do it is important. I think we need to make progress, but I think this is putting a hammer where it's not going to hit the nail and it's going to create more problems and more bureaucracy and unnecessary costs for people and towns and a burden on meeting the regulations that is purely meant to, I think, address a question that should have been addressed a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else online?
Hello,
Yes.
Bill Weinberg. Oh,
Hey, Phil, go ahead.
hello, this is Phil Weinberg. I'm Vice Chair of the Board of Health for the town of Westport. So the Title V revisions made it clear that opting to apply for a watershed permit would potentially be less burdensome for homeowners and boards of health in upgrading all its septic systems within 5 years. I think that's an option that's impracticable for many reasons. But I'd still like to focus on the Title V revisions because they're going to go into effect for Westport and other South Shore communities years before the estuaries are designated natural resource areas. And during that time, homeowners and boards of health will have to live with the Title V revisions. And some of these revisions will unfairly distribute the burden of these technology upgrades, deter further nitrogen reduction, and create implementation and enforcement problems for the boards of health. And just to mention some of them, the definition of what I'm going to call BART, the best available reduction technology, that definition equates general use, provisional, and piloting technology based solely on their nitrogen reduction performance even though these different categories have distinct permitting processes and performance reliability that will continue unchanged. And I think that's going to lead to increased implementation costs for homeowners and administrative burdens on boards of health. Also, there are two exemptions. One is this 1 year limit on grandfathering nitrogen reduction systems installed a year prior to the revised regulation date. And that penalized several hundred Westport owners who voluntarily, under Title V or Board of Health regulations, installed what was the best nitrogen reducing technology at the time. And I think the water quality benefits from not including them are going to be minor. And so I think that exemption or that grandfathering should extend back in time. Also, there's an exemption from technology that would only apply after systems were after the NRA designation. And so in all those years, all the people that voluntarily install or install nitrogen systems would have to be subject to subsequent retrofit. And again, I think that that is counterproductive. On the water management permit criteria, I think that the department needs to be very flexible in how it applies it related to water quality status. The regulations don't include provision that communities can terminate the permit based on their compliance status. And the enforcement costs are going to be enormous for boards of health. And we're going to need staff. We're going to need funding, technology, and staff assistance by DEP.
That's time.
Okay, that's
Phil.
time, Phil.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Sean McDonald, online, did you want to make some?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name is Sean McDonald. I'm part of the Dartmouth Select Board. Monday night, I requested the board send a letter to Representative Markey, to Senator Montigny, and to the Mass DEP, requesting that the comment period be extended until June 1st, and that the regulations not be implemented for at least another year until January 2024. This will allow time for all the municipalities affected to sit down with DEP to formulate a more cohesive, more responsible watershed regulations. DPW Chairman Bob Almy stated at our meeting that what fits the Cape and the islands does not fit Dartmouth and Westport. And one of the things that really bothered me the most is that Dartmouth, Westport, and none of the, as far as I know, none of the municipalities were ever talked to about formulating these regulations. This is a knee-jerk reaction by Mass DEP about the lawsuit from the CLF. And it's unconscionable and incomprehensible that no municipality was ever brought to the table to do this. The end results of these regulations will cost homeowners tens of thousands of dollars to install systems to reduce nitrogen that may not reduce at all. Plus the fact that the study that is being looked upon in the Dartmouth area is over 20 years old, and you're using bad data. Mass DEP has dropped the ball on this completely. And the communities of the Commonwealth need to rise up and say, whoa, time out. And we're in the process of trying to get all the communities to basically tell DEP to back off. Either way, this is bad for everybody all the way around. It's bad for municipalities. It's bad for the citizens. It's bad for the Board of Health. It's bad for the Select Board, because no matter which way you're going to go, this is basically 1,000 cuts by lemon or 1,000 cuts by lime. It doesn't work. And to be honest with you, the commenting period that the Mass DEP set up is a joke. Who does a commenting period during the busiest time of the year when everybody's attention is family and holidays. This needs to be extended until June 1st. And I will fight to make sure that it gets done.
Thank you. I don't believe we have any other municipal officials online. And so now we're going to try to go through the list. And I'm going to just go in order, as I said, with the people who check that they do intend to comment. Some folks are just here to listen, but if you change your mind, we can accommodate you. So now, Sean.
Good. Hi, my name is Captain Sean Nigger. I hold a Master's Unlimited license for the United States Merchant Marine. I've done expeditions in the Arctic, in Southeast Asia, in the South Pacific, all over the world. I grew up on Cape Cod, specifically right around the Bass River area. And when I was young there, I remember I could dive in Bass River and come up with a handful of scallops, which were perfectly good to eat, and go home and then give them to my mother and she would cook them. Not so much anymore. There's no more scallops in Bass River. There's a whole lot less fish in Bass River. And this is a trend that I've noticed not only here around Cape Cod, but globally. I just was in Holland last week. I was giving a talk about plastics in the oceans. And one of the examples I used about bad water management was Cape Cod. And I've seen the ponds die here. I've seen less fish stocks, and I've literally seen the area that I've grown up in slowly deteriorating. Now, that's all gloom and doom. Part of the other companies that I'm involved in, and some of the nonprofits that I'm involved in, is I'm the Marine and Military Advisor for a company called Engineered Fluids. We're looking at environmental solutions for electric vehicles. I'm also working on what's going to be the largest fossil fuel-free sailboat in the world. Anyway, all these things that are good for the environment. But what I want to just talk to is a little bit about the technology. There's a lot of times that we throw things at the wall to see if they work. And more often than not, they do. There's been a lot of talk about the tech that's being proposed, these IA systems or stuff. I honestly don't understand entirely the technology. I haven't looked into it completely, but it does reduce nitrogen. You're looking at, you're shaking your head. Doesn't reduce nitrogen?
Nope.
Okay, so are you a scientist?
I'm a homeowner.
Okay,
I pay for
good.
a system, it doesn't reduce nitrogen, I guarantee you that.
Precisely, but you're not a scientist and neither am I. So what I encourage you all to do is look at the science, look at the data. If it does, if you determine that it does reduce nitrogen, then that's a positive, then this is a positive step to take. And anything that we can do to help our environment, to move the ball forward, I think is a good idea. And I think that we should look at it seriously and not just say, and this isn't just about low-term costs of the value of their houses. We won't have any value at all. And this is just not my experience from Massachusetts. This is globally. I have seen countries decimated by poor waste management. And this is something that we're living in the most prosperous, one of the best, highly technologically advanced countries on the planet. There's no reason that we can't crack this. And that is by moving the ball forward, by looking at new technologies. And that's all I ask you to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if we could ask folks come up, make your comment. I think if we had an interaction, it's going to cut into their time. Everybody's going to have a chance to make their comments. Okay, so next we have Keith Bauer.
Good evening, everyone. Keith Barber, President of the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition. We're a nonprofit. We were founded 3 years ago this month, and we're a citizen organization. And we're here tonight. I'm here tonight with two of my colleagues, and we're representing our citizens. And those are the people that want to have results happen. So I have some charts because that's what I like doing. So this is a picture of Hen Cove where we all live. And this is a picture from the 1940s. Eelgrass everywhere. There's none right now, zero. So what our citizens have tasked us to do is try to make comments that influence change and make things happen. This problem, nitrogen problem, has gone on way too long. And one thing we can't do is put it off anymore. We need to take action now. These regulations are probably not popular in a lot of government offices, but they're popular with the citizens. People want things done. So the Barnstable Clean Water Group has testing of IA systems. Buzzards Bay Coalition has testing. This works. You just have to use the right thing. You have to check it out first, make sure it's vetted. So some other of my little factoids here. So we want to thank the Buzzards Bay Coalition for all the work they do with the Bay Watchers. So I can leave this out. People can look at it, later. So what this chart is 30 years of Bay Watcher data from the Buzzards Bay Coalition. So I've singled out a few special places to us. For example, in that 30 years, the Hen Cove rating, and this is achieved by 5 different measures. Hen Cove, where I live, has gone from 66 to 57. Red Brook Harbor, the inner Red Brook Harbor has gone from 88 to 53, where the outer has gone from 87 to 76. So this, I'm not going to read all these, but what the data shows is on the inside of harbors where there's homes and people have septic systems that don't work, that's where the problem is. When you go to outer, like in Pocasset Harbor, the outer number was 90 and it's only dropped to 76 in 30 years. These numbers are consistent. There's one place here in Wareham, which is a shame. It's right on Buzzards Bay, Acoop Cove. Their inner has dropped from 70 to 35. Their outer only from 97 to 84. So, I hear cost being a concern, and certainly it's a concern. I've read about it in the newspaper. My opinion and our group's opinion, the biggest problem is not doing it, regardless of the cost. Nothing's been done for years. We need to get doing it now. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Dwyer.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on these regulations. Again, Robert Dwyer, Pocasset, Mass. I can give you my address. I'm a member of the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition, a number of other environmental groups and civic associations, but I'm speaking for myself right now. Personal observation, my family has been swimming, boating, fishing, etc. on Buzzards Bay and Cape Cod Bay since the 1950s. And echoing what Captain Sean and what Keith had said, frankly, we've watched it go to hell over the last 50 years. These regulations have been on the books under the Clean Water Act amendments of 1987, since 1987. So they've been on the books for 35 years. Shame on the department for kicking the can down the road for that long a period of time. That's why we're in the situation we are now. Conceptually, these source controls, IA or frankly, central sewer systems will remove most of the nitrogen and will solve the problem. Conceptually, though, the time frame, even with the 20-year time frame, the time frame is too long. If you think about it, if we put source control over all of the areas that need it to get down to the TMDL levels, and it takes 20 years to install them, there's still going to be a huge mass of nitrogen that's going to be in the groundwater. That's going to take another 20 plus years to flush out before in the, I guess they call them sentinel monitoring stations in the TMDLs, before you really see an improvement or get down to the TMDL levels. Nobody in this room is going to be alive to see those improvements. Just think about that. Okay, I'm going to move forward to practicalities. Financing. Every homeowner is going to need access to the equivalent of a state revolving fund for these septic upgrades at the thresholds that are there now for sewer systems, 0, 2, or 20 or 4% based on income for long-term loans. Year-round homeowners on fixed incomes who are really in trouble are going to need some kind of a reverse mortgage where they don't pay anything until they sell their home. There's just no way around that. There has to be some long-term financing that the state are going to have to come forward with. Practically, the implementation of this thing is impractical. The towns don't have resources to do this. They have to figure out how to enforce these regulations. In practice, the whole process should run the way the Title V system where the design, installation, and monitoring is all done by the private sector. In terms of training the contractors, one option might be to have schools like Cape Cod Community College has a workforce training and development program that might be used to train some of these. And I'm now out of time, but I'd like to reserve more time at the end if there is any.
Okay.
Otherwise, I will see you in Hyannis.
Okay, thank you. Chris Shanahan.
Good evening. My name is Chris Shanahan. I own a D-Night system. I've had it for 11 years, and I feel like from Falmouth, I have it because some town politics made my subdivision get it. I'm here representing homeowners, and if they knew what was going to happen, I agree with Mr. McDonald. There'd be a line down the street. First of all, the cost in the paper this morning, it said $30,000 or $35,000 a year. That's a complete misrepresentation. You can buy a system for that. You got to maintain it. You got to get quarterly test. You got to fix parts. It just never ends. It's a lifetime nightmare. It's not a Title V where you sit in the ground, set it and forget it. So lifetime expense is more like 80 or 100,000 over 30 years. Secondly, they don't work consistently. We know that because the Mass DEP has never endorsed a single system, never guaranteed a single system. All they do is put out this regulation, provisional use, non-use, private use, general use. It's just a complete mess. So if you're a homeowner, you have no idea what to buy. It's not like going and buying a refrigerator. There's no reviews. You're on your own. The DEP doesn't provide any guidance. Like I said, the regulation itself, if anyone's ever tried to read it, it's a giant mess. I analyzed multi-billion-dollar banks, biggest banks in America, and you can never figure out what this regulation says. Homeowner risk, there's a lot of homeowner risk. You put a system in, it doesn't work. Who do you call? You're stuck. Nobody to call, nobody to help you, no town, no Mass DEP, you're on your own. You buy it from a manufacturer. You know little about it. There's no consumer reports. Manufacturer goes out of business. What happened? You're stuck. You got a piece of junk in your backyard. Manufacturers work with local septic providers, okay? How many of you think I had a system? They had one rep in all of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. That guy did not do his job. He went out of business. There was no one that could service the system. Now, in Falmouth, you're talking about putting 8,000 to 10,000 systems in. We got like 300 or 400 in Falmouth, and they can't keep up with that. 20 years, we've been kicking the can down the road. Now we're here, it's 35 years. No disrespect. I think we should do what it takes to clean it, but I think we should do what makes sense. Running around, implementing a regulation, and forcing homeowners to put in a system they know nothing about, the Mass DEP knows nothing about, nobody knows anything about, is not the solution. We don't hear about opening, we heard about opening up the waterway. This place in Falmouth along the Cape, all those estuaries have little openings to the ocean. Why don't they try what was in Katuitt? They opened the whole bay up, and it helped. I'm just saying, let's not do something that's not going to work and cost people $80,000. You talk about getting a loan. Where are these people going to come up with $2,000 or $3,000 a year to service their system if they can find someone to do it? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Joan Hutchings.
Joan Hutchings, I own home down in, North Truro. In July of 2021, I received a notice from the town of Truro telling me that I had to replace my septic system because it was a cesspool. There were 100 homes and businesses in Truro that they were requiring to replace their septic system, and it had to be done by December 31st of 2023. So I did what most smart people will do, and I went and I got first the engineer, cost me $6,000. Okay. Then 4 estimates. There are people out there that are price gouging anybody in that area that had to have this done. My first estimate was $35,000. The estimate that I went with was $24,900. More than $10,000 increase, difference. So that guy was just, oh, and these people have to have it done, And I'm not somebody that has a McMansion. I've got a 3-bedroom home that's been in my family for a bazillion years, and that's why the septic had never been changed, because it was never sold. And I take offense to somebody suggesting that I get a reverse mortgage. I'm a retired school teacher. I'm going to get a reverse mortgage. I'm going to pass this on to my family. I'm not going to sell it. Okay. So we had it done in June. Okay. Just 6 months ago. And now this comes out. And like you said, in the newspaper, it says $30,000 to $35,000. I'm going to spend an additional $35,000. Now, maybe because I have a brand new system, they might say, oh, you just have to update this for the nitrogen. Well, how much does that cost? Nobody can give me a price on that. Not to mention that it's not like, I read the newspaper. I found out what was going on through the newspaper. Nobody told me anything that was going on. If I had known this, I probably would have put off having the new septic system put in till, if this goes through, say, in January, I would have had it done after that, so I wouldn't have to worry about all this stuff. Now I have to worry about, am I going to have to pay an additional $30,000? And then if grandfathered, well, okay, grandfathered for a year, well, then I'm covered. Grandfathered for 18 months, I'm not covered. And 18 months isn't that long. It's a 3-bedroom house. It's not a McMansion on the water. So I just want the state to be aware that, A, there's people out there going to get price gouge, that I think the state should do something about those people. And also, I really don't think it's fair for anybody. You're going to grandfather somebody for maybe a year. You need to grandfather them for longer than that. My brother bought the house next to me. And so his new septic was, and he paid $26,000. That was 5 years ago. Okay. He's going to have to put in a new septic system. I just want everybody to be aware of what's going on out there. The town of Truro required me to do this. I did it. Now the state's going to have me do something else. I don't know. I might put an outhouse out back. Seriously.
I have a Robert O. Can't read the last name. He's an attorney and said perhaps he would like to comment.
Yes, I'm going to defer until a little bit later.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir. Zenas Crocker.
Thank you very much. Zenas Crocker with the Barnstable Clean Water Coalition. It's been very interesting to hear the practical situations that people are in. This is a really, really complicated kettle that we're in. And first of all, I want to say, let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. I think having regulations is absolutely critical. Addressing this problem has been going on too long. We all know that. But we need to figure out how can we have adaptive management. Really, this is the first look at these kind of regulations we've had in almost 30 years. In that period of time, so much has changed. More is going to change. We're working along with the Buzzards Bay Coalition on new innovative alternative system technology. Some of it is incredibly promising. It's not yet fully approved, but it is very, very promising. And one of the technologies has particularly low cost O&M and looks like it's very long lived. So I'm very sympathetic to the gentleman's comments of how expensive these systems have been and may continue to be. But we need to work on this and figure out what's the mosaic that's going to work for the community. I think a watershed permit is absolutely critical. I think it's probably unlikely to be successful to look at Title V replacement in an entire NSA area in a very short period of time. The product is not currently available. So one of the things I would like to suggest today is the EPA sent me to a report that I recommend that everybody take a look at. This is the 2021 Hawaii Cesspool Hazard Assessment and Prioritization Tool. And so what's so interesting about this is taking a look at the individual situations and trying to prioritize. One of the things that I'm particularly passionate that we look at is time to travel in the watershed. All nitrogen is really not created equal. So while storing in municipal treatments is vitally important, if we're going to treat something where the groundwater doesn't actually get to the watershed for 50 years or longer, let's not target that as the priority. These watersheds are declining at an accelerating pace. Climate change is what I think of as a force multiplier. We're turning up heat even as we add these bad things to the water. So bad things are going to happen more quickly. So what I would recommend we do is figure out how to prioritize. Look at the most troubled water bodies and let's look at what's closest to the edge in those water bodies. Chances are the people that have homes closest to the edge can actually afford alternative septic system technology. And I'm not looking to burden individuals, but I am looking to treat something that's so close to the water that it's actually having a negative impact very, very quickly. So that's my main recommendation today. Thank you very much. I'm left with 1 second.
Thank you, sir. Point of order. Could the gentleman give you people the name of that system?
Yeah, I'll provide it and you can send it around.
Thank you.
Greg, clear?
Greg Clear from Dartmouth on the Slocum River. Many of the points that have been made today are very valid. Obviously, there has been deterioration. So I'm not going to hammer on stuff that's already been brought up. However, I will raise two issues. One, the regulation as currently promulgated is aimed at a very small portion of the population, and it has an egregious burden. You know, people who have dealt with it, it's horrendously expensive. There is nobody to do it. There are no trained qualified people out there. And to say you must install best applicable technology is a moving target. As this other lady found, she put in a system 1 year, 2 years from now, somebody can come back and say, whoop, some guy on the other side of the world just came up with another one. You better put it in. Equally, the specifications of what is the best qualified. Maybe I've already got it. You don't know about my system. Is there anything out there that will measure the effectiveness on my system, on his system, on her system, that system? No, that's not in the regulation. We have this amorphic goal that we want to achieve. I live on the river. I understand your point, but it's a worldwide problem. So perhaps this should be rewritten, revised, such that, okay, we want to redo these systems at state expense. This could be done through taxes. This could be done through grants and dumping loans, even subsidized loans, or sell your house to the bank to pay for it, is again, just dumping debt under the individual. It's not helping them pay for it. It's not helping pay $80,000 a year in maintenance. So we need to look at this, one, define just what are we trying to do? What do you want us to do? Nobody knows what the hell it is. Nobody knows how to measure it. There are no towns that know how to measure it. As Mr. Michon pointed out, they don't have people to check this out. They don't know how to inspect how it's installed. We don't have people that know how to install it. And yet we want to pass a regulation, which will say within 5 years, 2,700 homes in Dartmouth alone have to have this. And there's nobody to do it. So this regulation is burdensome, unreasonable, and vague. All those points have to be addressed. Spread the load over everybody. It's a worldwide problem. Let all of Massachusetts pay for it. After all, we pay for stuff out on the West Coast, so why shouldn't we be paying stuff here? I'm left with 35 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Tim Hayes.
I have a home in Dartmouth next to Gray, and I went on the site of the Buzzards. I was against it. I went on the site of Buzzards Bay Coalition. They made some good points. But what I take out today is supposedly we have this enormous problem. But the way we're going to fix it is with a couple of thousand individual homeowners.
It doesn't make any sense. If it's an enormous problem, then everyone should be involved in fixing it, not. So the fact that you're saying it's an enormous problem, but only a small group of people are part of the solution tells me you don't think it's an enormous problem.
Right.
The other thing is, I think if you're going to do it, which I don't think you should the way it is, it should be credits on the line like we do for solar energy or cars. People shouldn't have to pay for it individually. They should get credit against their taxes. That seems equitable if you're going to force people to do something. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Ladar Williams.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much. My name is LeVar Williams. I am a resident of South Dartmouth. I just wanted to address it as an active citizen. First and foremost, if this is a Commonwealth issue, it should be addressed with a Commonwealth solution. It is irresponsible to mandate or promulgate regulations absent of any scientific evidence. So my request to you is twofold. One, extend the comment period for all towns, municipalities, and counties to comment. And second, to ensure that we have a holistic government approach. I truly believe that in light of the bipartisan infrastructure bill, this is an infrastructure issue for the environment of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it's irresponsible not to address this from a holistic government approach. I would like to see, as a taxpayer, as a citizen of South Dartmouth, a government approach that is open to the public and transparent. Those are my two requests, and part of the Generation X and the Millennium, we will take it onto social media as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's everybody that we have on the list who want to. Oh,
No.
no, we have more.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, I knew I was getting something. Thank you. All right, Chris, we've already got you. Don McCormick.
That's me. So Don McCormick representing Sunbury Acres Trust, 85 homes in North Dartmouth. My background, 35 years in the federal government, Navy, submarines, nuclear submarines. To put out requirements without numbers is something that we would all be fired for. So in the light of transparency, I just thought I'd bring that to you. I thought Governor Baker's signing out the transparency in government is kind of a misnomer, this whole thing. Zero transparency. We don't know who's on the nitrogen committee. Can't find it on your website. Have to request it, really. Obviously, was not a well-rounded group. There's no local people that have to actually implement this stuff. There's no contractors in there. There's no innovators. I'm happy to hear that somebody's actually testing some of these systems. This is the state of Massachusetts. Boston is an innovation hub. How many people from the innovation hub were in on this? I don't think you have any. I worked for the Navy, who had more innovative solutions out of NAVFAC, probably the worst organization in the Navy, coming up with smart ideas to get stuff done. Haven't seen that yet. So my recommendation, I guess, like everybody else, revisit who was on your committees, make it transparent, bring in real scientists and innovators from Boston and the rest of the world, get this done much more cheaper. For transparency, the data is 20 years old. I looked it up on the websites. Don't see it. I looked up how many systems the Mass DEP is approved on the website that actually say nitrogen reduction is 3. Kind of goes against all these other things that is limited availability of these systems. I did notice in some of the slide packages that there's a whole $5 million per year to loan out to homeowners at 2%. So I'm thinking that
50K a year. That's 9 if each of those grants is 450K each, which is what you tout on your website. So I think just in general, not a good systems engineering approach on this whole thing. I would start again, get the right people on the team, extend the, what is this period? Comment period, thank you. And then look for a common solution to all. Transparency in government is important right now, as you see in the national elections. It'd be nice to have it in our hometowns, in our home state. So that, I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. Mark Yanni.
My name is Mark Yanni, I'm the resident of North Dartmouth. Thank you for your time. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm a little embarrassed to say it's very recently that I learned about all this, so I am trying to play catch up. I believe that the Mass DEP is using outdated data and not including any local community entities has created an extremely arbitrary process and ended up with very capricious solutions. Mass DEP is unable to provide any support to implement the installation of the IA systems, which obviously cannot be effectively installed or maintained efficiently or in any cost-effective manner due to the lack of supplies, the lack of installation professionals, and also maintenance professionals. Mass DEP is also unable to prevent any price gouging, which would occur due to the above noted reasons. I'm unfortunately left with a total lack of trust with the Mass DEP, and I don't understand how these hearings can be squeezed between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I have no idea how my family would afford such a system, the cost of the system and the yearly maintenance of these systems. I don't know how my family would do that. And I do request that the hearing period be extended for at least 6 months to allow better solutions to come to light. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, I'm Martha Hofer. I am with the Pocasset Water Quality Coalition. My family's been longtime residents of Pocasset down on the Cape ever since my great aunt owned the general store back in the 20s. My dad was a recreational fisherman and scholopher, and I wish I had unpacked my Christmas gear because I would have shown you some scallop ornaments we made back in the day. You can't do that anymore. There are no scallops left in the harbor. I was a lifeguard in the town for many years. 6 days a week I was in that water, rain or shine, teaching lessons, and I don't even like to swim in it anymore. In 2019, I was one of the founding members. I was the president of the Pocasset Heights Improvement Association, and the Water Coalition consists of members of various neighborhood organizations in the Pocasset area. I'm very familiar with these water quality issues. We have had town meetings with our membership in the Pocasset Heights Improvement Association since 2006. And I've been watching the Buzzard Bay Coalition numbers go down and down and down. I think we all agree this is a serious issue. The composition of our neighborhoods have changed over the years. It's changed from a summer community of 2 months to year-round communities with people with bigger houses, washing machines, dishwashers, more toilets, more showers. We have 1 toilet and 2 sinks growing up when I was a kid. I look at these proposed regulations as a response to inadequate planning by our government, our towns, and our communities over a long period. There is no magic solution, but a community-based approach to watershed management, as well as individual homeowner responsibilities, are part of the solution. The proposed regs do move us in that direction. The message I hear from my community is that improving our water quality is critically important, both for our enjoyment of our environment as well as our long-term economic value to our properties. The overwhelming challenge I hear is how can we afford this system-wide improvement in septic management? We cannot afford not to do it, but we have to look to our government leaders and private industry to help us fund this and to develop the staff capabilities to make it a viable industry in Massachusetts. Other critical watersheds across the country have been successful in slowing the decline in water quality, and we here in Massachusetts can do it too. In fact, some communities already have worked in this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I believe we're done with the comments from the folks who are in the room, and we'll switch to the people who want to. Oh, you perhaps have become a yes.
I really don't have to go to the podium to make this point.
Well, except that, sir, we are
Oh, I'm
recording
sorry.
them. Thank you. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Technology.
Yeah. Can't live without it, I guess.
Good evening. My name is Robert Overketter. I'm a lawyer in Massachusetts, and I represent one of the several people in Westport Point, and Dartmouth. 2 points that were especially telling to me tonight. First was from Mr. Alney, who says, as a scientist, there's not enough data yet. Other people said there's not enough. The regs are 20 years old. So they have to be developed currently with scientific input, in my view. And the other speaker, Mr. Williams, said it best, I think. If we are serious, and there's no doubt that everyone here tonight is acting in perfect good faith, no problem. But the problem has to be, if it's serious, which it obviously is, has to be resolved at least at the Commonwealth level. And if you're serious about paying for it, have the Commonwealth tax appropriately and have every citizen who wants to go to Pocasset and other places will enjoy the environment as it should be enjoyed. So it's, you know, as a lawyer, I can tell you throw all the stuff against the wall and it equals a tax. Might as well just send out another tax bill. The best way to do this, in my view, is to just stop everything, pause, listen to the Elmies of the world, and listen to the Williams of the world, and Mr. Clear. They live this stuff on their properties. So I think the pause is not just in order. I think it might be, as Mr. Almey alluded to, there's a legal issue here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I hope the third time's a charm. So I think we're ready for the folks who are online.
First, we will have Donald Law. Donald, please prepare to speak as I explain the comment system for those on Zoom. If you have not done so already, please raise your virtual hand if you wish to comment. When it is your turn, you will see a prompt on your screen to join as a panelist. Please click yes. Once you join as a panelist, please unmute yourself to present your comment. You may also turn on your video if you would like. Your 3 minutes will begin once you start speaking. Donald, I will now invite you to join as a panelist. And after Donald finishes, the next person on deck will be Alberto Tavares.
Yeah, hi, I'm Donald Law, and one of the most impactful things I've heard tonight is the perfect is the enemy of the good. We've been on the Cape for probably 50 years, and I've been a homeowner in Cotuit on Old Post Road. And I've watched the destruction of the Cape waters over these years. It's been sad to see everything disappear over time, and really nothing has been done. I remember going to the State House years ago and watching the TMDLs and had the progress of some of the degradation of these body. It's time to do something. I strongly support the regulations. Title V pollutes. We obviously have to do something. But I say that with serious reservations, in that I do support the regulations, but I think it should be understood that these technologies now are removing 90% nitrogen. I mean, these are proven by scientific methods. It's hearing other people complain about it. We need to actually demonstrate that it has to be done empirically so everyone is confident these systems work. if we look at sewering, the proposal for 30 years of sewering at a cost of $1.4 billion only adds 10% more homeowners, leaving 70% unsewered. That's at a cost of $100,000 per household for sewer. In retrospect, if you had these other IS systems at work, that's maybe 20 to 30,000. But the most overriding thing, which I think everybody agrees to, there has to be equity here in terms of how are these things paid for. The average homeowner has to have relief on this, and it shouldn't be a reverse mortgage. It may not even be a tax. It should be some sort of state relief or grant to get this done. And the second piece that has to be done is the maintenance. Because if you come up with a system that really does work, that can be done in large numbers, it's going to have to be maintained like a utility. It should not be up to the homeowner. So my two provisions, my main concerns are equity and how you pay for it, that I think we have to go forward. I strongly support the regs. It's time to get moving, but I think we have to demonstrate systems at work, and we have to figure out how to relieve the homeowner of this financial burden and also relieve him of the maintenance of these systems, because they're going to need to be maintained. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's in her backpack. She loves so.
Next, we'll have Alberto Tavares. Alberto, please click yes to join as a panelist. And on deck, we will have Dee Dee Nickerson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name's Alberto Tavares. I'm a resident of North Dartmouth since 1997. And I'm a member of I'm also part of the Songbird Acres neighborhood that Don McCormick alluded to, and a member of the Board of Trustees for that neighborhood. I think we can all agree that it's our combined responsibility to take care of our environment and that we should seek opportunities to improve it. However, my concern is that the decisions here on the Title V proposals are based on old data, as many people have already discussed, and old research that may not include impacts, changes to the environment due to global warming, geological differences, and in many cases, newer unregulated polluters such as composting facilities that are proliferating across our state. And my question is why is the focus on septic systems septic systems, which some of these studies that you are utilizing to make these decisions, septic only accounts for about 29 to 34% of the nitrogen pollution. So are we just low-hanging fruit that are easier to force into compliance with a government heavy-handedness? What is being done about the remaining 66 to 71% of polluters, which includes farms, includes corporations, includes, as I said, composting? What is being done for the remainder of that? Because to me, we're just solving a very small percentage of the polluters, and you still have a big problem out there. And at an average cost of $30,000 to $35,000 to install these systems, and I was told $12,000, but it sounds like it's even more than that annually to maintain these systems. That's a heavy burden for many of the homeowners in these areas that are already impacted greatly by inflationary pressures, high fuel costs, and it's to implement a solution that the Mass DEP can't even guarantee will solve the issue. So, I mean, talking about costs and financing is still a long-term loan. It's still a loan. It has to be paid back. Reverse mortgages, that nauseates me that someone even suggests that someone use a reverse mortgage when many of our elderly folks, this is their only asset that they want to leave for their children and leave behind. With reverse mortgage won't allow you to do that. And how do you guarantee that you're not going to be taken advantage of by predatory contractors and price gouging? So it's really disconcerting how you guys went by making these proposals. And I think it's really short-sighted. And
Regarding transparency, I can't speak any more eloquently than Dawn already did about transparency. There is no transparency here. And that is something that's very, very concerning this day and age, with all the issues we're having around our country with government. And just to close out, I'm really skeptical about the scheduling and location of these hearings. This is a very busy time of year, as many have already alluded to. And having a hearing in Lakeville, when some of the impacted homeowners are in Westport and Dartmouth, it makes it hard for us to show up in person and and voice our opinions. So I'm really skeptical about how you guys went by scheduling this stuff. But in closing, I think you need more transparency. I think we need more time to make right decisions. And I think we need to gather more data and also look at the other polluters that are out there that you're not doing anything about right now.
Thank you, sir. Time's up.
Dee Dee lowered her hand, so next we will actually have Carol McIntyre, and Glenn McCarthy is on deck. Carol, please join as a panelist. Carol has lowered her hand, so next we will have Glenn McCarthy.
Hi, everyone. This is Glenn McCarthy from Mashpee, Massachusetts. Member and co-founder of Mashpee Clean Waters and a special project lead for the Citizens for the Protection of Wacoit Bay. Our estuaries are rapidly collapsing. I've lived on Papaneset Bay for over 50 years. It used to be clear water with millions of juvenile fish, sandy bottoms, and just a wonderful place for citizens. It's now black muck that's feet deep and slimy green, smelly algae. It's very sad. Along our ponds, it's now sometimes unsafe to walk your dog, because if your dog drinks the water in some of our ponds, the dog could be sick. We have tons of data. There's really no dispute on what the issue is. We know how to solve it. We just need to have the resolve to do it. And I would like to credit everybody here for being part of that solution. I have two recommendations. One is do it now or do it faster. This has been delayed for 20 or 30 years. Delay is not the answer. The second one is to really focus and ensure that we have proper sizing of systems. We've seen an explosion of very, very large structures, typically very close to the bays and the water. These structures are often on a quarter acre of land, which is not enough to process the wastewater that they put out in any system. They're usually permitted as a 3-bedroom house, yet many of these houses sleep 20 or 30 people. They're rented out as Airbnbs, which have very different flow rates from what a 2 or 3-bedroom family might normally do. Some of them are used as large event facilities. They're almost akin to a commercial structure, frankly. And I would strongly recommend that we look at flow rates and ensure that whatever system is put in, that it is designed for the proper amount of flow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Next, we will have Carol McIntyre and Dee Dee Nickerson on deck. Carol, please unmute if you can. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carol McIntyre, and my family has had property in Lakeville for about 75 years and Mattapoisett for probably the last 50. I just found out about this issue really today. Not that I haven't been following this, but I'm just in awe in listening to everyone's comments. And there's no question that should be for all citizens a support for clean water for all people. And I'm certainly 100% behind that. There's no doubt about that. But as a citizen, I'm listening to this and I feel like we need time to explore the science and technology more than what I'm hearing right now. I'm just surprised at the amount of science that exists that doesn't seem to be in place in the consideration for what's being looked at right now. I'm very concerned about the burden for homeowners. I don't think the average homeowner can do this alone. I do believe in maybe some equity here, and that maybe looking at having all citizens take part in this.
We can't hear you anymore.
Carol, can you hear us? Okay, maybe we can come back to Carol. And so next is Dee Dee Nickerson.
Sorry. Hi, here. Hi, I'm Dee Dee Nickerson. I'm a resident of Katuitt on the Cape. And thank you for hosting the hearing today. And thank you for all the participants, the people who made the time out of their busy schedules. I'll just start by saying it's been really educational to hear comments from both sides. I'm actually very much in favor of these regulations. And, you know, like many people have said, you know, it's very clear, like our bays in Katuitt, West Bay and Osterville, North Bay, McCoy, so, we had Glenn from McCoy. We're in kind of a fairly dire situation with regard to nitrogen and pollution in general. And it's, you know, what do we do? Nothing. We wait years, we see it get worse. There are a number of people who have cited data being 20 years old. I mean, you know, guys, are there less houses? Are there less people? Is there less activity? Is there less pollution than there was 20 years ago? Because that data should be helping those who aren't supporting these efforts. And I think that, you know, look, there are people who have differences of opinion on this, but like, let's look for the similarities here. We really need to do something. And these regulations aren't perfect. And the economics of it aren't perfect, but like those can be worked out. And as Zeke Crocker from Barnstable Clean Water Coalition pointed out, they've got a system they're testing that's relatively affordable. And let's start with people who can afford it. Let's talk about those who can afford it, who live on the water, who are, you know, where the pollution is going more directly into our bays and estuaries. Let's start with the people who can afford it, and maybe there's an opportunity here to work out amendments for implementation that address the economics of this, because it shouldn't be a burden, frankly. This is, you know, this is about us. Would we defund our fire departments? Would we, this is as critical as that to the sustainability of the economy of the Cape and the economy, again, I'm not so familiar with what's going on in Dartmouth and Westport and in those areas, but this is if we want to maintain the economy of Cape Cod and more importantly, maintain the status of our harbors and estuaries, this is a necessity. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can see if Carol is still out there, if she wants to continue with her comment. She got cut off a bit.
Yes, I believe Carol's back online.
Okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Carol.
Unmute.
I believe I'm back online.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much. I just think my final comment was really about the equity for all, and that maybe that would be an opportunity for not only homeowners, but all citizens who want to just use any of the areas, whether it's the Cape, Southeastern Massachusetts, water safety, fishing, boating, just enjoying our beautiful environment that has been really decimated over the years. And also other industries that contribute to this issue, because it feels to me like clean water for all means that we all need to contribute to the solution to this problem as well. And that's really all I had left to say on that comment. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak this evening.
Thank you. So I think we've finished with the folks online. Does anybody else in the room want to make a comment?
I've got a couple more things to say.
Okay, that's what the timeout is for now. Thank you.
A couple of more points that I didn't get to earlier. My next bugaboo is cesspools. Cesspools have to go. That's a 17th century technology.
I'm sorry, so your name again?
Robert Dwyer. Okay, Picasso. I apologize.
No problem.
Cesspools are a 17th century technology that have to go. There's absolutely no excuse for it. I live near Pocasset Harbor, and when I walk around my neighborhood during a wet period, my nose tells me which houses have cesspools instead of Title V septic systems. Pocasset Harbor is listed on the 303D list. In addition to the nitrogen problem, which is extreme, it's listed as impaired by fecal coliforms. Guess where that comes from? It's not from Title V systems. It's not from ducts. It's not from any other excuses that people have come up with. But there has to be a way to get those out of there. Pocasset Harbor is not alone in that. Yesterday's Cape Cod Times on the front page had a story that shell fishing in Pamet Harbor on the Outer Cape is still closed, and it's closed because of fecal coliforms. So it's the same problem. There are cesspools around there. These things have been grandfathered by legal trickery, by trusts and other shenanigans, so that they can get passed down from generation to generation, and these people can continue basically to pollute with bacteria long after they should have had Title V systems by even the Title V regulations, which are somewhat outmoded. Okay, that's that point. My other point is that the main stems of Buzzards Bay and Cape Cod Bay should be monitored, and when the conditions start to show over time, they probably need TMDLs for nitrogen. In Cape Cod Bay, in Buzzards Bay, the decline of eelgrass is well documented. When I go out there and see it, what's left of the eelgrass is covered with a green epiphytic slime. It's really in bad shape. Cape Cod Bay has a recently documented zone of death every summer. The Division of Marine Fisheries solution to this is to tell lobstermen, well, just put your trap someplace else where the lobsters won't die when they get inside of it. The reason it's dying is because there's a depletion of oxygen on the bottom coming from organic matter, coming from the death of phytoplankton, algae in the water column, fertilized by nitrogen. The state needs to monitor both of those and get on the stick about doing TMDLs. Thank you.
Okay. And if you could restate your name?
Yes, my name is Chris Shanahan. I'm from Falmouth. Maybe I overstated it. My talk wasn't all about affordability. I own my system. If I had to buy a new one, I could buy a new one. That's not what it's about. It's about practicality. You get 8,000 systems in Falmouth put in 5 years. No way, not even close. Great systems out there in the works. Are they going to be ready next year? Probably not. So we got to start doing something. Yes. Town like Falmouth, I'm not on any committee. They got permeable barriers. They're trying all different kinds of things. The answer isn't just septic. As I heard tonight, it's only 30% of the problem. You know, not to be a smart guy, but walk around the yard with a D-night system, it's going to smell pretty bad too. It's going to be like you have a cesspool in your yard because it emits the odor. So it's pretty unpleasant in my neighborhood, depending on which way the wind is blowing. You know, so it's not a walk in the park. It's not as easy as, it's not just let's put in septic. I mean, of course, I'm all for the environment, doing what makes sense, but ramming through, you know, you got to put in, you know, how many thousand systems that you don't know what's going to do isn't the solution. I think the Mass DEP needs to look at what other states do, like Rhode Island. They have a more collegial approach to this. They don't require every single system, which are all municipal waste systems in your backyard, to be tested every quarter. They allow you to test the same system and sample, which is scientific. Everybody has, there's 100 systems out there that are the same. Why do you got to test every system every quarter? We don't do that for our cars. We don't go to the doctors that way. Why not sample the systems that are in that match and then see what the results are? Because I can test my system quarterly, but there's nothing I can change that's going to change the result. So I don't know what I get out of testing. It's like, you know, it just doesn't make sense. It's a barbaric setup that the Mass DEP has, and it really hasn't taken any leadership, although the solution is definitely with private industry and the science community. But your regulations, you really got to look at what you're requiring of residents, because people have put them in on volunteer basis. Then when they find out, we've had test runs, they find out what it costs, how hard it is, they lose their enthusiasm for it because there's no support. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Can I do one last one?
You may. If you could restate your name
Yep,
as well.
Don McCormick, sorry. I think one of the things I forgot earlier was I'm a little confused. The Mass DEP is pushing for composting, which is a source of nitrogen getting into the water, at least in Dartmouth, Westport area. And yet we have this regulation, which is trying to reduce nitrogen getting into the water. So it seems to me like there's one hand doing one thing, pushing for something that is increasing nitrogen. In fact, we have garbage coming from other parts of the state down into our area that is polluting the watershed. In the meantime, you're trying to hit up, DEP is trying to hit up the homeowners to solve this problem when there's other contributors, as has been stated before. So be nice if DEP kind of regulates itself and gets the two hands talking to each other. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room?
The problem with asking is you get.
Yes. But we want to.
All right, so I want to just put some numbers into the record here. My name is Robert Almy. These are, I will recommend to the Board of Public Works that this information be in a written comment letter. We meet the day before the close of public comment. On the third page of the executive summary of the TMDL document, there is a figure ES-A, and it indicates that 43% of the nitrogen, total nitrogen in the estuary, is attributable to wetlands, 8% to atmospheric deposition, 13% to impervious surfaces, including highways and airports, and 14% to septic systems. Even with 100%, that's not going to efficiency with retrofit. It's not going to do what needs to be done. And I will point out there are roughly 2,000 septic systems in the Slocum River watershed. And if we're talking about retrofits of $10,000 or more, that's $20 million from people who don't live near the coast, because most of these septic systems are not near the coast. These are folks like some of the folks that have given testimony tonight, who are retired and don't have a lot of cash sitting around. As to the issue of doing a watershed plan, embayment restoration and guidance for implementation strategies for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts is dated 2003. The site-specific nitrogen thresholds for southeastern Massachusetts embayments, critical indicators, dated 2003. These are from DEP's watershed. Anybody here drive to this hearing in a 20-year-old car? I used to drive old Volvos. I did it for 40 years because I'm cheap. Okay. I only got 2 cars over 20 years. Okay. The data need to be looked at again. This is not an issue that we don't want to do something to improve the embayments, but we want to do something that makes sense and is effective. It's got to be feasible. It's got to be economically feasible and technically feasible. And again, what might work on Cape Cod with sandy soils and a single source aquifer, a sole source aquifer, and that has a situation very much like Long Island that's been very well studied. That set of regulations should not apply to other areas of the Commonwealth that have very different geologic and hydrologic settings. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else in the room? And we'll give the opportunity to folks online. If there's anybody else online, I just want to remind you that if you do want to comment, you have to raise your virtual hand. Okay, it appears we have heard from everybody who desires to provide comments at this hearing. Before closing the hearing, just wanted to double check again, or triple check, is there anyone else who desires to comment? I think we've gone over that fairly well. I thank all of you who provided comments tonight, as well as those who have been in attendance. All the comments from this hearing and the written comments received by 5 p.m. on December 16th, 2022 will be considered before Mass DEP finalizes the proposed draft regulations. There being no further testimony, this public hearing is now closed on November 30th, 2022 at 7:34. Thank you very much. We can stop recording now.